All right, so let's talk about this Lil Durk situation. Now, Lil Durk's case has been pushed back. Initially, Lil Durk's case was supposed to be taking place in a couple of days or a couple of weeks from now, and it got pushed back, man. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Lil Durk because they have so much evidence allegedly against him. Now, it seems to me that they're dragging their feet with this Lil Durk case. We've seen these other cases be carried out in a faster fashion, like the Diddy trial. The Diddy trial has been carried out. It's already done. He's already gotten his sentence. It's on, right? Now, Lil Durk's situation is a little bit more serious, right? Because Lil Durk is being alleged to be the mastermind in a murder-for-hire plot.
Durk woke up in a Broward County jail cell today. The Grammy-winning rapper, whose real name is Durk Banks, is in federal custody after.
And not only one murder-for-hire plot, another murder-for-hire plot that might be seeing litigation pretty soon as well. So there's a lot going on with Lil Durk. Now, one thing about Lil Durk is he's got several co-defendants whose names are well known within Chicago drill rap and within the OTF fan base. One of those people specifically being none other than OTF Dede. Now, OTF Dede, his name has been out there a lot because there was a video of his brother getting arrested, and a lot of people were saying, hey, look at his brother. He looks like he's ready to fold. So probably OTF Dede will fold on Lil Durk. Now, OTF Dede is one of the guys who's been long associated with Lil Durk, probably one of his best friends in OTF that are on this case with him. And he's also faced some snitching allegations. Now, that hasn't stopped because today we see some paperwork is being spread on social media because of a filing made by his attorney in this Lil Durk OTF RICO case. Now, this is wild, man, because for OTF Dede's attorney to be making a filing in order to separate the case, it's got people thinking that OTF Dede is just prepping himself to snitch on Lil Durk. But man, let's actually look at what was filed, what's out there on social media as far as what was filed allegedly, and then break down if OTF Dede is really out here snitching on Lil Durk. All right, so this is the paperwork that's got everybody up in a storm, man. It's got everybody talking on social media. So as you can see here, this was a filing made by Craig A. Harbaugh. Now, Craig A. Harbaugh is an attorney, and he, I guess, is a part of the Harbaugh Law PC. So that's probably his law firm. And he's also showing up as the attorney for defendant Deandre Wilson. Now, Deandre Wilson is OTF Dede. Now, you see this defendant Wilson's motion to sever. Now, that is important because a motion to sever doesn't specifically say that somebody is out here snitching. You know what I mean? I first want to get that out of the way because I don't want to be the leader of any type of misinformation out here as far as this case or trying to paint somebody as a snitch when they're not. So the first thing that should be a clue to everyone, and I'm going to scoot this up for y'all, is that it's already listed as a motion to sever. So that lets you know that he's trying to separate his case from Lil Durk. Now, him trying to separate his case from Lil Durk doesn't mean that he's willing to tell or snitch on Lil Durk. But it does lead us to believe that he feels and his attorneys feel that there's some information or some evidence that the prosecutors feel that they have against Lil Durk that's very damning. That is, and that the charges against Lil Durk are so heavy that he feels the need to separate his case from Lil Durk and all other parties who are being accused of carrying out this shooting death of Quando Rondo's cousin, Lil Pap. So remember that this is a murder for hire case involving two superstar rappers. You've got Quando Rondo, who's a part of the NBA Youngboy 4K camp. Then you've got Lil Durk, who is the head of OTF, the record label, and the crew, right? And this shooting took place in Los Angeles out of nowhere, where Lil Pab and Quando Rondo were out just trying to get some gas for some vehicles that they were traveling around Los Angeles doing their business or whatever, right? Shooters pull up, start taking shots, end up trying to get, it looks like they were trying to get Quando Rondo. Lil Pab happened to be outside the vehicle and ended up being the one who lost his life in this situation. So tragic situation. And to be real, the consequences for whoever's found responsible for this is going to be long. They're probably going to never see the light of day ever again in their life. And this case was picked up by the feds, so that makes it even the worse, right? Now, in this paperwork, it details what they feel, or at least his attorneys feel, is the reason for them requesting this motion to sever. So it goes on to say, to the honorable court and all parties and their counsel on record, defendant Deandre Wilson, by and through his counsel of record, Craig A. Harbaugh, hereby moves this court for an order severing his trial from the co-defendant Durk Banks and any other co-defendants whose trials are joined with Mr. Banks. So basically, he's trying to separate his case from Lil Durk's case and any other co-defendant in this case, because them being on his case could hurt his case, is what's being said. Now, this motion is made pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 14 on the ground that a joint trial will cause compelling and incurable prejudice to Mr. Wilson as a result of prejudicial spillover from extensive other acts, evidence noticed by the government that overwhelmingly concern Mr. Banks and other alleged actors and would not be admissible against Mr. Wilson if he were tried alone. So in layman's terms, he's basically saying that there are things that are in this case against Lil Durk and the other co-defendants that are bad, really bad, that look so bad that they would hurt his case because he has nothing to do with it. He's not involved in it. They don't have any evidence of him being involved in it. So don't put that in my case. I want to separate my case because I want the jury to look at me based on what I'm being accused of and what they can prove against me. Not because, say, somebody else is in your case, they've got a murder. They got evidence of the murder, the shooting and stuff. If that's shown during your case when you have nothing to do with that, it could already taint the jury into thinking that, oh, well, you hang out with them, you're involved with this too. This is the type of person you are. It can make your case that much worse. That's what they don't want. That's what his attorney doesn't want, and that's what they're fighting against right here. But it continues. Now, in this part right here, this is basically a memorandum that points out everything that they want to detail is in the case that they don't want to be involved with as far as OTF Dede is concerned, right? Okay, so let's break this down from top to bottom. So in this first paragraph, they basically outline the facts and the rules that would give him the ability to separate his case. And it says that and fully expects that the court to exclude the highly inflammatory evidence, right? So anything in the case that's highly inflammatory that could taint his case, he feels, or his attorney feels, right? Now, it goes on to say, but if the court were allowed the government to introduce the evidence, severance is the only way to protect Mr. Wilson's right to a fair trial. So back to what we were saying previously, that in order for him to feel like he has a fair trial, much like Lil Durk, he wants to separate his case, because I believe that Lil Durk separated his case or is trying to separate his case as well. So this isn't snitching. Like a lot of people would say that he's rolling over on Lil Durk or he's leaving him out there for the wolves or something like that. But that is 100% not the case in this situation, because when it comes to this case, there's so many different moving parts. There's people who are going to be looking at murder, you know what I mean, who are their whole case in this or their whole trial against them is being convicted of murder. And if you don't have anything to do with a murder, you don't want that to be in your case because, once again, you don't want it to look bad. Now, a motion to sever is a strategic legal move to avoid being judged alongside someone else whose charges are heavier or more inflammatory. Kind of like what they're saying right here with the highly inflammatory evidence. Now, his lawyer is arguing that much of the government's evidence in the murder plots, the bounties, and the directives to hunt rivals only applies to Lil Durk and not Deandre Wilson. Now, that's the part that has a lot of people saying that he's snitching on Lil Durk, because in this part he says the government's notice sets forth extensive other acts, evidence almost entirely directed at co-defendant Durk Banks. Allegations of violent retaliation, murder plots, paid bounties, and directives to hunt rivals spanning multiple jurisdictions and years. By contrast, Mr. Wilson appears, if at all, only peripherally included in two text threads reflecting general chatter around Mr. Banks' alleged feud and threats. In terms of both of severity and breadth, These allegations dwarf the current charges against Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson will be forced to devote extensive time and resources to defend against evidence that has almost nothing to do with him. Now, they're saying that none of that's got anything to do with OTF Dede. So it would be a waste of his resources and his legal team's resources to make him have to prepare a defense against things that he's not involved in. This is a smart strategic legal move, to be honest with you. And Lil Durk, I believe, is doing the same thing. Like trying to separate yourself from some of the more egregious things like the murders, the bounties and all that in the case in order to get fairly tried for the things that you are actually being accused of doing. You know what I mean? You saw it in the Young Thug trial. A lot of people did this. It happens all the time. Now, what makes it look like he's throwing Lil Durk to the wolves is the fact that he mentioned Durk in the allegations. So it says in this memorandum, in the part of this motion to sever, it says directed at co-defendant Durk Banks, allegations of violent retaliation, murder plots, paid bounties, directives to hunt rivals spanning for multiple jurisdictions and years. Basically painting the picture that all that stuff can be, Lil Durk can be accused of, but you can't accuse OTF Dede of none of that. So don't put that in our case. Don't put that in our trial, right? Now, the part that makes it look even worse, I want to show you guys right here, is at the end. And this is a part where a lot of people were saying, all right, he's definitely, throwing Lil Durk to the wolves with this situation. At least his attorney is, because of the wording of this. So he says on September 1st, 2025, the government served its initial Rule 404B notice identifying a series of alleged prior acts it intends to introduce as evidence of motive, intent, preparation, and plan by co-defendant Durk Banks, aka Lil Durk. See the declaration of Craig A. Harbaugh, which is OTF Dede's attorney, Exhibit A. So this is evidence he proved against Lil Durk, proving that Lil Dede had nothing to do with what's being presented on September 1st, 2025. Remember, that was the date that I believe they changed when the trial was going to take place. Don't hold me to that. Now, the notice overwhelmingly targets Mr. Banks, and nearly all the government's listed acts consist of alleged violent conduct, threats, or otherwise. So basically, his attorney is saying, all right, y'all are saying Lil Durk did all this, right? And we don't want you to put OTF Dede in any of this, the planning, the execution of this, or any part of the murder for hire plot, because what he's being accused of doesn't have anything to do with the shooting, doesn't have anything to do with anything outside of this text thread that they mentioned previously. So we'll see how this is going to play out in court. But in the streets, this definitely looks bad for Dede as far as him holding it down for Lil Durk, because it seems like OTF Dede's attorney, not OTF Dede, even though your attorney acts on your behalf and is you in these situations, and according to most people in the streets, his attorney threw Lil Durk under the bus. Basically put like, hey man, we don't want to have anything to do with that. We don't want that in our case. So please, 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 could you separate us from that? Now, with all that being said, I wouldn't be doing my job if I ain't tell y'all this. Now, a motion to sever does not mean that he's snitching on Lil Durk. You know what I mean? Now, the concern is that if they're tried together, right, the jury could unfairly associate Lil Durk and his alleged actions with OTF Dede, and which could, basically hurt his case, man. That's the real reason for the motion to sever. Happens all the time. Sometimes people talk it out, but in a situation where they're in their feds, it's not a possibility. You know what I mean? Now, whatever they got against Lil Durk and that they're planning against Lil Durk, obviously OTF Dede's attorneys are like, nah, we don't even want that in our case, but for your best opportunity to beat your case, because OTF Dede's attorney, his job is to beat the case for OTF Dede, not for Lil Durk or anybody like that. And he's got to give him the best fighting chance he can. And any smart person listens to their attorney. Does it seem like the attorney kind of threw Lil Durk under the bus? Yeah, but to be honest, a motion to sever is not snitching. Snitching is cooperating with the prosecution against your co-defendant. And that's not what he's doing here. So we'll see how this plays out.